Today we shall discuss the valuation of environmental resources. First we should discuss the need for need for valuation of the environmental resources. Uh, okay, why should we value the environmental resources? In fact, there would be so many reasons. One would be that in economics or even in day-to-day policy making, we observe that environmental resources are degraded because we think, or the policymakers think, that they don't have much value. Okay, and so for example, the example that I give usually in a typical class is that in near to Bhubaneswar we have a sanctuary called Chandaka Wildlife Sanctuary. Okay? And this is a elephant sanctuary, and there is a huge one, in fact, and that covers two districts, Khordha and Cuttack districts. And now, since the capital city Bhubaneswar is now expanding, and the mayor or the municipality chairperson would uh, think that let us clear the forest because the city is expanding and now Bhubaneswar city is becoming a smart city. Okay? So there is a huge pressure on the land, okay? And because people are moving to city, and so there is a need to have more houses. Similarly, there would be a lot of industrial activities. Now you have a choice whether you need to preserve the sanctuary or you want to clear the forest and destroy the sanctuary and expand the city. Okay? So here now comes a policy choice, okay, that whether you want to preserve this or you want to clear the forest. Okay? And that in any kind of policy making or in any kind of environmental resources, such conflicting questions arise. Now, in such a case, the policymakers would say that, or the ordinary people would say that, no, don't be so romantic, and what will the forest do, or what will this elephant do? So let us clear the forest and expand the city so that it generates more employment and our city will become a smart city. We'll have smart infrastructure. This will attract more people, more investors, and more employment, more income. And this will add to the state GSTP, gross state domestic product. So income becomes an argument, employment becomes an argument by the policymaker, and the forests would not have a voice. First of all, they themselves cannot claim that no, we are important, and even the environmental activists who demand that no, the sanctuary is so important, people would say that don't be so romantic. No, we can plant trees somewhere else. We can preserve elephants somewhere else, and why do you need this sanctuary at all? So, in such a situation, the people who argue for the environment would say that no, if you do a cost benefit analysis, then probably the benefits of clearing the forest would be less than preserving the forest. Okay? Uh, because if you preserve the forest, it would attract so many tourists and it would add to the local climate. Like there are a lot of benefits to the environment. For example, there will be less pollution. It can serve as a sink to the pollution of the city, and then people will come to see the sanctuary, and the people would go there for recreation and for leisure. So it can really add value, and then again, climate control in the sense that there will be good rain in the city, and so if there is less pollution, the quality of life of the people would be much better. Okay, so there would be such environmental arguments. It's not that only the timber or the elephant we argue, but then there will be a lot of indirect benefits. But we need to have a number because the mayor or the municipality commissioner would say that no, if we clear the forest at the sanctuary, we are going to get these many crores of revenue and these many thousands of employment, and we can accommodate so many lakh or crores of people. So they would give you tangible numbers. But in case of environmental goods and services, we will not be, it is not easy to provide these tangible numbers. Okay, so environmental economists are basically working for this, that how can we really monetize the value of the environmental goods and services. Okay, although it is not very easy, the methodology are still evolving, but still attempts are being taken up that how can we really measure. Okay, and in fact, there are also direct benefits, indirect benefits, then ecological benefits, environmental benefits, and so many benefits are there. So it is a very complicated process. So at least attempts are being made to get a number, so that when there is a conflict between the divisional forest officer of, say, Chandka Wildlife Sanctuary and the municipal commissioner, then the DFO can argue that, see, the forest gives this much value or forest generates this much value. And if municipal commissioner says, by clearing the forest we will have this employment and income, then we can do a proper cost benefit analysis whether the forest should be preserved or not. So this would help us in better decision making, and this would also help us in better conservation of the natural resources. In fact, there would be so many other arguments also that no, why do we need cost? Some people may argue that no, why do we need cost benefit analysis at all? Because the nature itself has its own importance, okay? And in situ preservation of nature is conservation of nature is important. So we should not argue at all. Okay, but usually, no, that is not so easy. Usually, when the policymakers take a decision, they always look at the hard facts. So that will help us basically. So this and need for valuation or the valuation of environmental goods and services will help us in preserving the natural resources also. Then, when it comes to the valuation, how do we really value? First of all, we should know how many values are there, how many types of values are there. And we have use values, then we have non-use values. So broadly, we can divide the value of environmental services into two categories. One is that we have the use value, and we have the non-use value. So use value is very simple to understand. Okay, that because we are directly consuming the benefits, okay, of the environment, and that's how that is used. So, for example, there is a forest, we are getting timber. Okay, that is the use value. And similarly, sometimes we can have the tourists that are coming to the sanctuary, and they are enjoying the beauty of the nature, and that's how this is use value. Similarly, the forest is providing, say, a lot of medicinal plants or herbs, and that is saving the life of the people, so that is again use value. Similarly, forest could be helping us, say, in okay, we may get animals, wildlife, okay, and similarly, we might collect different non-timber forest products. Okay, so all these things will be coming under the use value, that you are directly using this. But in case of environment, the non-use value is huge, okay? And we might not be using the nature or the environment, but then it has its own importance. Okay? We cannot ignore the non-use values, and in fact, sometimes non-use values are much bigger than the use values. So, what would be the example of non-use values? Say, our understanding on the environment and nature is very very limited. We do not know what is the use of certain plants or certain species. It could be medicinal use, or it could have some other uses also. and our understanding is really limited. Now, if we destroy the environment in future, when our knowledge grows and our understanding grows, if we do not have that resource, then we will not have the option also to use that resource. So the non-use value is very very important. In fact, there would be also other values like, say for example, people worship some hills, okay? And like the Niyamagiri hill example that probably I might have given in some other classes, that in Odisha, the Niyamagiri hill in Rayagada district, is worshipped as Niyam Raja. People worship the hill as Raja, okay? Because the hill provides livelihood to so many tribal people, and it provides, it is the source of drinking water to so many local villages and even towns. So since it provides livelihood and different benefits in different ways, okay, with people worship this as the Niyam Raja, and there is a cultural value to it. Okay? So similarly, if you look at say your property, say for example, some people don't want to sell their parental property. Okay? In fact, if you sell your property, you may get crores of rupees, but then people don't want to sell it off, even though they may get a huge amount of money by selling this. There is an emotional connection to that property, okay? And that's why they don't want to sell it. So they just want to hold it. Okay? So in many ways, you can say that there are huge amount of non-use values of the environment. Now, when we say non-use value, we have again two no options, two values we have. One is the option value, that okay, you think that okay, today we do not know the use of this, so in future we may use this. That is option. So you have an option to use this in future. You don't use it today, but you may use it tomorrow or in future. And the other one is the existence value. You don't want to use it at all. You want the existence of that resource itself. So for example, the beautiful birds, okay, or the beautiful animals, even insects, sometimes you see that they're so beautiful that you want just it to be preserved. You may never use that, but then you want this resource to exist. See, for example, the tigers. You may not use it directly, but we all want the tigers should uh, be available in our forest. That's why we are spending so much of resources. So some other species, we say that okay, we may not use it, so the future option also may not exist to use, but then its existence itself is important for us, and we are ready to pay a price. So how to value that, we shall discuss the methods, but at least now we are understanding that the existence value is also equally important. Okay? And then within existence value, we have the bequest value and the sympathy value. Okay? Sometimes we just think that no, let it be there for the future generation. Okay? That is the bequest value. And sympathy value is that okay, we think that okay, that creature is uh, so innocent, and we need this creature to be preserved. We have some sympathy for this. Okay? And for others we may not have any sympathy, but we just want that this should exist in the future. Okay? We don't want this to be destroyed. Okay? So this is actually so that's how we classify all the values into use and non-use. Getting use value is so easy, but then getting non-use value is difficult. And non-use values have two options. One is option value, other is the existence value. And the existence value has two categories. One is request value, other is sympathy value. So so once you know that there are different types of values, use or non-use, okay, then we need to know the methodology, the methods, okay, how to obtain these values, whether it is use value or the non-use value, how to obtain these values. That is very important, and that is very complex also. It's not so easy to get the values that we have discussed. Even for for that reason, the direct use or the use value is also not easy to obtain. Non-use value is also much more complex, but even obtaining the use value is also complicated. And so the coming to the methods, we have no, usually no, we say that okay, people no can state their willingness to pay, okay, and or willingness to accept, okay, for the resources, and that would be a method, okay. So either you are using willingness to pay method or willingness to accept it method, okay. And so in case of willingness to pay method, we say that okay, this is the largest amount of money the individual should be willing to pay in exchange for the resource. Okay? So, for example, we are getting some resource. You are asking the person that how much you will really will to pay. Okay? And so willingness to pay is determined from the standpoint of lacking the, you don't have this resource, and that is why you want to pay and obtain this. That is one option. Okay. And other is willingness to accept, okay, that you are enjoying some resource. Now that resource will be taken away from you. In that case, you will be provided with some amount of compensation. Now, how much compensation you want to receive, for the sacrifice that you will make? Okay? So, for example, say trees will be cleared from your locality, and in that case, the officials may say that the trees do not belong to you, okay, and this is a common property resource, or this resource belongs to the nation, so you don't have a property right over this, so we may not give you any compensation at all. But even if there is say pressure, say for example nowadays under the Forest Right Act, we have community community ownership of the resources. Apart from the individual ownership of the land, communities are also given the ownership over some amount of land or the forest. Now, in that case, you will be given compensation if someone comes to clear the community property. Okay? And so, similarly, suppose you are being displaced, okay, and you will be given compensation. So, you are making a sacrifice, and now somebody is asking you that, okay, how much you want to accept for making this much of sacrifice. So this is the smallest amount of money the individual would accept to forego the resource, okay, environmental resource. And so the willingness to accept is determined from the standpoint of already having the resource. So you are already enjoying this, okay, and if you are sacrificing this, then how much compensation you would expect. And in fact, I have not put the diagrams here in economics. No, in microeconomics class, we use the diagrams of compensating variation and equivalent variation. Okay, so that diagram I did not use. It is a little complicated, particularly for Ajitesh and Amit. I thought it will be a little complicated, so I did not use this. But then, in simple language, you can understand that in case of willingness to pay, what you are doing is that somebody is not having that resource. Now, to obtain that resource, you have to pay something. Okay? So, for example, somebody will ask you that you will be allowed to enter into the Chandka Wildlife Sanctuary so that you can see elephants, you can see wild deers, and there are beautiful water bodies. You can experience the serenity of the nature, the silence of nature at night. So you can stay inside the forest. So for all these things, how much you would like to pay? Okay, and because so you don't have the luxury of staying inside a forest. Now if you will be given this luxury, then how much are you willing to pay? That will be your willingness to pay. And then in other case, it would be that okay, you are having a beautiful say water body near your home, and now in fact because of that water body you had constructed your house there, because you thought that okay, my house will have the luxury, okay, because I can see the water body from my balcony. But now government is planning to convert that water body into a playground. It will fill up soil, in that water body, and it will convert into a big playground. So in that case, you may be worse off, okay, because you will not have the luxury anymore to see that no water body. Now, for that, no government may ask, okay, that okay, we are ready to compensate you, because that will have a lot of implication on the property value. See, people, you might have seen even in cities, wherever there is some greenery, you would see that, or if there is a natural forest, the land prices or the building prices would be much higher. Okay? So now, if that luxury is being taken away from you, then you need to be compensated. So how much compensation you need to receive? No, that is basically willingness to accept. And in fact, in other cases also, you can say, in case of bats, we have goods and bats. In case of bats, we can take that example. Say, for example, uh, near again Bhubaneswar, there is a village called Daruthenga. At least Asmita might have heard, I hope. There is a village called Darutheng near Bhubaneswar city. Now, Bhubaneswar Municipal Corporation is planning to, not planning, it has already done that. It is now dumping all the solid waste generated from Bhubaneswar near that village, Darutheng village. So so Darutheng village people, earlier enjoyed clean environment. Now, the municipality has decided, municipal commissioner or the mayor has decided to dump all the solid waste near their village. Now, the villagers are protesting, that no, we don't want the waste of the city to be dumped near our home. Okay, and they did not allow also for a few months. They did not allow the waste to be dumped near their home, or near their village. And then the the municipal corporation had, a meeting with them, and they had a bargaining that okay, we'll compensate you for all these things. Okay, and so that would not be individual compensation, but for the entire village, indirectly, so they would like to compensate, okay, by creating, say, some public utilities, okay, or say they would, set up, some processing machines, so that the pollution, is reduced. Okay. So like this, they want to provide some compensation. So here we say that earlier people enjoyed clean environment, and now they're accepting these waste, okay, to be dumped near their home, and that's they need to be compensated. So this will be willingness to accept that how much public utility you want to accept as compensation for accepting these bats to be dumped near your village. Similarly, we can take some other realistic example. You might be aware that India is one of the largest processor of the asbestos, old asbestos. In fact, we have a huge ship breaking industry in Gujarat, Alang. Okay? Now, in Gujarat, Alang, we dismantle all the old ships that is not used anymore. So why the advanced countries, send their old ships to be dismantled in India? Because the people in the developed countries believe that their life is more precious, and by dismantling these ships, you know, there would be health hazard. Okay, so they don't. So the old ships are basically bats, and they don't want to sell this, in their locality, because there is no demand for this. But there is a demand in India, because our lives, are probably, not valued, as, is done in the developed world. So what happens? We receive some compensation. The developed countries send their ship, which is considered as a bad, to India, say Gujarat, Alang, and the workers who work in that industry, of course, are paid a little higher salary, but then the cost is that there could be health hazard. People may die in silicosis. Okay? And silicosis is very difficult to diagnose. So many people suffer from a health risk. Okay? But still, uh, we accept this because we accept this bad, and now advanced countries people would ask the owner of the shipbreaking industry in Gujarat that to dismantle this, how much money you would like to take. So this is also willingness to accept example. Okay. And when you compare this willingness to pay and willingness to accept, your willingness to accept is always larger than the willingness to pay. In fact, why this happens? Because you are already enjoying certain things, okay? And losing some privilege, has more, disutility than not having and trying to get something. If you are already enjoying certain luxury, it is very difficult to go down. But when you don't have you don't have something and you want to obtain something, then the willingness to pay for that would be less. So when you compare willingness to accept and willingness to pay, it is willingness to accept which is bigger, and it comes because position of greater wealth lead individuals to place higher valuations on goods they desire. But that is also, that can be shown in the compensating variation and equivalent variation. Kulona and Sasmita, do you remember the compensating variation and equivalent variation?
Yes, sir.
So in next class, you will have to explain, okay, that which one is bigger, the compensating variation or the equivalent variation. And
Yes.
between compensating variation and equivalent variation, one is called willingness to pay, and other is compared with willingness to accept. So you have to show me in next class, both of you, uh, that which one is bigger and why. Okay. Okay. Then coming to the again measures of value, we have direct valuation and then we have indirect valuation methods. Okay. And so first we shall discuss the direct valuation methods. And in case of direct valuation method, we have direct market prices. Okay. Of course, for everything we may not have a direct market price, but then we use some other methods to get the direct valuation. And one is the market price. Okay, that okay. So for example, I was telling that you collect lot of non-timber forest products, and say from Chanka Wildlife Sanctuary, and that has a market price. You collect timber, you collect firewood, you collect a variety of non-timber forest products, say like amla and or many other similar mushroom and so on, and it can be sold in the market. So you aggregate that. Okay? A component at least can be sold in the market. So that is that can be estimated through the market prices. But Chanka Wildlife Division or the sanctuary also attracts a lot of tourists. Okay? And so the tourists are contributing. No, why the tourists come to this sanctuary? Because they value the services, the beauty of the nature, they value. Okay? So even though they don't extract any resource from this, but when the tourists come, they value it. Now, how to estimate that what is the price that or what is the value these tourists are quoting on the sanctuary? Okay. See, you can take the entry fee. Okay, that to enter into Chanka Wildlife Sanctuary, you are paying an entry fee, but that is not the whole amount that no the people are really willing to pay. In fact, the willingness to pay is much larger. Okay? And the travel cost is basically a reflection of that. Suppose people from America come to Bhubaneswar just to see the Indian elephants, which are supposed, say unique, and or say there are some unique species of birds. So, for example, in Bhitarkanika, a lot of tourists, from foreign countries come, and because there are unique birds and there are unique crocodiles, and even the mangrove forest is unique in Bhitarkanika. Tourists from different countries, come to Bhitarkanika to see those unique crocodiles, the birds, and the mangrove forest. And so that means if somebody is traveling from Europe or America just to see all these natural resources, the birds or the other species, then that means there. So other than the entry fee, which is a few thousand rupees, maybe 3 or 4 thousand rupees, the amount of money that they spend is more than 1 lakh per person if you are traveling from America in terms of rupees. So your willingness to pay for the services of the nature in Bhitarkanika is more than 1 lakh rupees, and that is per person. And you can estimate, throughout year how many people come, and so what is the benefit that you are earning from the Bhitarkanika sanctuary. Even for that reason, Chanka Wildlife Sanctuary also, you will see that a lot of people love to stay inside the forest. Okay? And forest department has also created a lot of cottages inside the sanctuary, so people go and enjoy. Forest department has made a lot of watchtowers, so you can watch elephants, okay, and other animals. So the travel cost method is also coming under the direct valuation method because people are spending money directly, and you just need to aggregate that. Okay, so the travel cost method, and then the user fee that you are paying, if you aggregate that, then that would reflect the value of the forest. Okay, and so that means people are quoting it indirectly that we value the sanctuary this much. Otherwise, you would not come from all the way from America to here. Okay, just to see the crocodile, gharial crocodile of Vitarkanika is unique. Okay, and there are only a few numbers, probably in double digit. We have a few crocodiles only, and those are really endemic also. And then in case of travel cost method, the problem is that it doesn't capture the non-use values. Okay? It only captures the use values. Okay? Use values in the sense that you know that okay, this is unique, and the the utility that you are deriving, or you know that okay, this is this can be used for some benefits. Okay? So you only take the use values, okay? And it doesn't really capture the non-use values because there might, in fact, for everything, non-use value is very difficult to estimate. Okay? And if people would know that okay, this is the non-use value, and they may say that no, what is the benefit that I am getting personally. So in case of travel cost method, we don't capture the non-use values. And then in the direct valuation, we also have the contingent valuation method. Okay? And contingent valuation method is basically your willingness to pay, which is again contingent on a hypothetical scenario involving environmental assets. Okay? So, for example, basically you will be asking some people. Contingent valuation method is basically we use willingness to pay method. We ask questions that if we improve the situation, then how much will you pay? So, for example, we will say that the Nandan Kanan Zoo of Bhubaneswar now has some entry fee, say something like say 50 rupees entry fee, and we have clear information that the Nandankanan Zoo has these many species, say variety of elephants, tigers, and birds, lions, and other wildlife. But now, suppose Nandankanan is authorities are now planning to increase the entry fee, and that's what they're supposed doing a survey, okay, that if we add a few more species to the sanctuary, how much will you pay? So this is now what is happening. Now you are asking the people their willingness to pay, which is contingent on a hypothetical scenario, that if we'll add certain species to this sanctuary or the zoo, then how much will you pay for this? Okay, so this is open-ended question. Similarly, you ask some people that okay, now in a city, now we want to have a park here. Okay, now how much will you pay? Okay, see your park, you may not buy this directly. The park ownership might not be with you, but then when you know that, say the city authority is planning to develop a park in your locality, you believe that no, your quality of life would be better. So then in that case, how much are you willing to pay? So, and you ask open-ended questions. Okay. You don't give an option. So whether 100 rupees or 200 rupees or 1,000 rupees, you don't give any option. You just ask how much is your willingness to pay. And that willingness to pay is used in many cases, like for example for drinking water also. Suppose government wants to provide clean drinking water to all the households where people are suffering from say different water related diseases, uh, which people obtain from say tube wells or open ponds or the streams. Now government is planning to provide them tap water to all households. So you can do a survey and ask them what is their willingness to pay. And similarly, suppose now say the chief minister of Odisha has announced that Puri municipality will have the drinking water directly. You can drink from the tap without any more filtration. Many cities are now planning to do that. You don't have to buy any more water purifiers, so the quality will be ensured at that level. Now that means you are making an improvement from a low quality of environmental services or assets to a high environmental quality. Then in that case, how much you are willing to pay, and that is open-ended question. Other would be your dichotomous methods. You are asking, okay, will you pay 100 rupees per month? Suppose for drinking water, we're asking. Or say we are asking that, okay, we are developing a park, and the authority has decided that we will collect, say, 1,000 rupees from each household. So we are asking because you have made a target that by collecting 1,000 rupees, we will be able to collect the entire revenue, okay, that is required for developing this path. So you are asking that, okay, so 1,000 rupees or not, yes or no. Then people may say that no, we are not willing to pay. People may say that yes, we will pay 1,000 rupees. So dichotomous choice methods. And then other is the payment cards. Payment card, in fact, if you read the literature people where people use these payment cards, they make a menu type of thing. When you go to restaurant, you see a menu. So you develop a menu and show them alternative scenarios. That okay, you have scenario one, scenario two, scenario three, scenario four. For example, in Nandankanan Zoo, you in option one, you say that okay, we'll have giraffe. Okay, and in second one, you say we'll have giraffe plus say some more tigers. In option three, we have giraffe, then we have tigers, then we have say some more birds, and in fourth option, you may have say different varieties of snakes. Okay. So in that case, now you're asking if you will be given the option one, how much will you pay? And there will be also payment options. Okay, that okay, your willingness to pay is this much, or your entry fee will be increased to this much. Okay, so that is your payment cards. Okay, and whether the amount increases or decreases, that you can show. And then bidding games in the sense that you are asking questions or the prices either in ascending order or in descending order. Suppose you are asking, again, suppose Nandankaran example will take that you want to increase the user fee or the entry fee. So you are asking, okay, the now we are going to bring such species to Nandankanan. Present entry fee is 50 rupees. Now we are going to increase this to 60 rupees. Are you willing to pay? Somebody will say yes. Then you are asking, will you pay 70 rupees? Somebody may say yes. Will you pay 80 rupees? Will you pay 90 rupees, 100 rupees, 150? So some people may continue to say yes. But some people may say, no, 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 more than 100 rupees, I will not pay. So that means you started from 50, you have reached up to 100, and after 100, the person is saying, no, no, I will not pay more than 100 rupees. I stopped there. Okay. Similarly, you can come downwards also. That you are asking a very high price. That okay, we will bring all these species. Will you pay 1,000 rupees as entry fee to the Nandankanan? Somebody may say no, I will not pay 1,000 rupees. Then you are coming down. So will you pay 900 rupees? No. Are you willing to pay 500 rupees? Somebody says no. Are you willing to pay 300 rupees? Somebody says yes, I'll pay. So then you stop there. That means your willingness to pay is 300 rupees. Okay, so you can do this, that bidding games, that either you are starting in ascending order or you are doing it in a descending order, and that's how you are deriving the willingness to pay. And this is a contingent. This is contingent upon some environmental assets. So this is actually your direct method, and this can be direct market prices. You can use the travel cost method. You can use the contingent valuation, which is basically your willingness to pay method. And but it has lot of biases also. That contingent valuation method has lot of biases. It would have information bias. Okay, that if you know have clear information that okay, Nandankaran authorities have already decided that they will increase the user fees from say 50 to 75 rupees. Then when the so if somebody asks you a question, if surveyor is asking this question to you, you may say that no, I will not pay more than 75 rupees because I know that okay, government has decided this much. So there would be information bias. Similarly, interviewer bias. No, the person who is interviewing can also have bias. In fact, the way you are asking questions, if you hint something, okay, or the way you ask, similarly, for example, if you are asking in say the in a bidding game method, that whether you pay 50 rupees or 60 rupees, you are increasing the value or you are coming down in the descending order, so that would have also bias. And in fact, there are a lot of studies on this comparison of the implication or the willingness to pay in different methods. Then the payment vehicle bias, that how are you willing to really make the payment, and the sampling bias, who are you surveying, okay, and then self-selection bias, okay, that see usually what happens when you do a survey, some people even don't respond, okay, to your questions. Now the people who have responded might have a higher willingness to pay value. So that means your sample is already biased because you did not get any response from the people who are not willing to pay anything, and people who have participated in your survey are already biased because they are willing to pay anyway. So that means you do not include everyone. So there will be self selection bias, and then the starting point bias. From where you are starting, whether you are starting from 5 rupees or 10 rupees or 100 rupees. So that would be also that would have implication. Similarly, whether it is ascending order or descending order. Okay, the starting point will have implication. So for example, when you are doing it from a very high value to a low value, people will say that oh okay, you are starting from 1,000 rupees, then how long time you will say no, so you will and so some point you will say yes, okay, no, I will pay 300 rupees. But if you go in the reverse order, in the ascending order, okay, whether it is 50 rupees or 75 rupees or 100 rupees or 125, you may not reach 300 at all. You may stop somewhere say, at 100 rupees. So there are biases, okay, but in spite of all these biases, people use contingent valuation method for different studies and for valuation of the environmental goods and services. And then we have the hedonic pricing method. And in case of hedonic pricing method, what we do is we evaluate the differences in the prices of goods or services caused by the environmental assets or liabilities. Okay, and so basically you are asking people this question, that if say the Nandankanan example that I was giving, similarly you can take other examples, that if the prices of hotel rooms is higher in areas with more biodiversity than in areas with less, other things being equal. So sometimes you see that, in fact, say in Bhubaneswar city itself, I would give an example. Say there is a restaurant called Forest View. And in fact, I have got the information that that restaurant in Bhubaneswar is very, very crowded and highly demanded one. It is near to Patia, Keys Square, Kalinga Institute of Social Science, or KIT, you can say. And it is basically near to the Chanka Sanctuary. So, of course, on the side of the road. So, people, many people go there because you can see the forest and at the same time you can have your food. So, in this case, the hotel owner, the restaurant owner may charge a little higher price. There is a premium because you are enjoying the nature and you are having the food. Similarly, so that means there is a place utility in economics. We usually study different utilities. There is a place utility, there is a time utility, and so on. So here we may have a place utility. that a specific hotel is having extra environmental resources, that's why people are willing to pay a higher price. In fact, you know that when the 4-star, 5-star rating happens, it happens because of the services that they provide. There will be a swimming pool, okay, and there will be sometimes golf court and so many other facilities for which people are ready to pay. Nowadays, we are going for again cottages, okay, and heritage buildings which have been converted into hotels, so that has different prices. So you are basically comparing. Similarly, you are asking some workers, okay, that we are going to plant trees, and whether you will okay, we are going to plant trees in the forest, and whether you are ready to accept a low wage, because people may, or workers may believe that, okay, it is not that monetary money that we receive is the direct benefit, because our service may generate a lot of values. It may generate a forest, so people may value that, and may in fact sometimes volunteer without accepting any wage, that okay, because we are contributing to the creation of forest, we should provide free services. Okay, so you basically, in fact, a lot of studies are also done. So, for example, in cities, people do know how the housing price is determined. The houses live near to the schools, the houses near to the hospitals, houses near to the city center, houses near to say cinema halls, okay, or houses near to the forest or the parks. And then we see the differential values, how people quote different prices, and from that you can determine how the in case. So here we are focusing on the environmental assets. So here you are determining how the environmental resources are determining or influencing the asset prices. It could be any asset. It could be your house. It could be land. Okay? It could be a park. Okay. Uh, so that's how actually we do a hedonic pricing method. And in case of hedonic pricing, there are also risks that again the passive use values do not enter into the prices. We don't uh, value that, because we simply say that okay, there is a park, of course, we will be enjoying the services of the park, okay, but whether the park will have some value for the future, you don't bother about that. You only bother about the utility that you will be deriving from that park. That's why you are willing to pay a higher price. So the hedonic pricing also has the risk of not valuing the passive values, and this also requires lot of huge data set. In fact, in case of hedonic pricing, what we do is we do a regression method. We use regression method. We do a survey of so many respondents. Say, as for example, look, we are doing a housing price survey, and how the environmental services influence the housing prices. So you have to collect a huge data set. Suppose you are doing it in a city, then that might be a small sample, and you might not have a lot of variation. So you need a huge data set. Uh, and it is easy to get the information on the demographic and employment variables, but it is difficult to get environmental variables. Okay? How the environmental variables, it could be so many other things, like for example the noise pollution, the air pollution, the availability of the drinking water, then the water table, groundwater table, then the trees, okay, and the varieties of species that are available in the park. So many other characteristics, and getting the characteristics of environmental variables is not so easy. So these are the risks in case of hedonic pricing. Okay. So that's all. Okay.